June 14, 2025, 14:23 hours. In the contested waters of the Black Sea, 85 nautical miles south of Crimea, the impossible was about to happen. A Russian Tu-22M3 Backfire bomber, weighing 126 tons and traveling at 450 knots, descended to wave-top altitude and screamed directly toward the USS Porter, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer conducting freedom of navigation operations. The bomber's altitude, 50 feet. Closure rate, 520 miles per hour. Time to impact, 11 seconds. On the Porter's bridge, Captain Sarah Mitchell had less than 3 seconds to make a decision that would either prevent or trigger World War III. What happened in those 3 seconds would be analyzed by military strategists for decades. The Black Sea had become a powder keg of NATO-Russian tensions following the Ukraine conflict. Russian forces routinely harassed U.S. Navy vessels operating in international waters, but this was different. A 126-ton bomber flying at 50 feet directly at a warship wasn't harassment. It was a simulated attack run identical to what Russian pilots would execute before launching anti-ship missiles. Captain Mitchell's crew had weapons locked, fingers on triggers, and every justification under rules of engagement to fire. But opening fire on a Russian military aircraft would trigger Article 5, mobilize NATO, and potentially start a nuclear war. The captain had 3 seconds to decide: shoot down the bomber or hold fire and risk her ship. June 14, 2025, 0800 hours. The USS Porter, DDG-78, departed Constanța, Romania, for a routine freedom of navigation patrol in the Black Sea. The 505-foot destroyer displaced 9,200 tons and carried a crew of 380 sailors. Her armament included 96 vertical launch cells loaded with SM-2 surface-to-air missiles and Tomahawk cruise missiles. Her Aegis combat system could track and engage 100 targets simultaneously. Captain Sarah Mitchell commanded the Porter with 18 years of naval experience. She had conducted 23 deployments, including multiple Black Sea patrols where Russian harassment was routine. "Captain, we're being shadowed," reported the tactical action officer at 1200 hours. "Russian frigate Admiral Makarov, bearing 045, range 12 miles.
Maintain course and speed."
"Expected," Mitchell replied.
Eyes on target.
"The Russians always shadow us in the Black Sea. Maintain course." What Mitchell didn't know was that Russian military leadership had decided to escalate their harassment tactics. Orders had been transmitted to the 924th State Aviation Regiment at Mozdok Air Base, conduct a simulated attack run on the American destroyer. At 1400 hours, a Tu-22M3 Backfire bomber lifted off from Mozdok, carrying a crew of 4 and no live weapons, but configured exactly as it would be for an anti-ship strike mission. June 14th, 1420 hours. The Porter's AN/SPY-1D radar detected an airborne contact 120 miles to the northeast, heading directly toward the ship at 450 knots. Air contact, bearing 045, range 120 miles, speed 450 knots, altitude 30,000 feet, reported the Air Warfare Coordinator. Signature consistent with Tu-22M Backfire bomber. Russian bomber conducting routine patrol, Mitchell assessed. Standard harassment, track and monitor. But at 1422 hours, the situation changed dramatically. The bomber began descending rapidly, dropping from 30,000 feet to 500 feet in less than 2 minutes. Then it descended further, 200 feet, 100 feet, 50 feet, until it was flying just above the wave tops, directly toward the Porter. "Captain, the bomber is descending to wave-top altitude," reported the tactical action officer, tension evident in his voice. "This is an attack profile, range 15 miles, closure rate 520 miles per hour." Mitchell felt her blood run cold. A bomber at 50 feet altitude flying directly at her ship wasn't harassment, it was simulating an anti-ship missile attack. The Tu-22M could carry Kh-22 missiles designed specifically to destroy American warships. "General quarters, all hands to battle stations," Mitchell ordered. "Weapons free on my command. Get me a firing solution now." The Porter erupted into controlled chaos as 380 sailors sprinted to combat stations. The ship's close-in weapon system, A radar-guided 20mm Gatling gun capable of firing 4,500 rounds per minute automatically tracked the incoming bomber. CIWS has lock, reported the weapons coordinator. Ready to engage on your command, Captain. Range? Mitchell demanded. 8 miles and closing. Time to weapons range, 45 seconds. Captain Mitchell stared at the tactical display showing the Russian bomber screaming toward her ship at 520 miles per hour, just 50 feet above the water. Every instinct, every training scenario, every rule of engagement told her to fire. The bomber was exhibiting hostile intent. It was in an attack profile her ship was in danger. But Mitchell also understood the strategic implications. If she shot down a Russian military aircraft, even one conducting a simulated attack, Russia would claim it was an unprovoked attack. Article 5 would be invoked. NATO would mobilize. The situation could escalate to nuclear war within hours. Captain, we need a decision, urged the tactical action officer. Range 5 miles. If he's carrying live weapons, he'll be in launch range in 20 seconds. Mitchell's mind raced through the calculus. The bomber was conducting a simulated attack, dangerous and reckless, but not an actual attack. If it carried live weapons and intended to fire, it would have done so already from beyond the Porter's defensive range. This was a game of chicken, a test of American resolve. Captain, 4 miles. CIWS is tracking. We have firing solution. Recommend we engage now.
We have firing solution. Recommend
3
we
seconds.
engage now.
That's all Mitchell had. 3 seconds to decide between
1.
defending her ship and preventing World War III. Hold fire, Mitchell ordered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline. All weapons hold fire. Track and document. Get every camera on that bomber. I want video evidence of this entire incident. Captain, he's not breaking off. Range 2 miles. The Russian bomber continued its approach, now clearly visible from the Porter's bridge, a massive gray aircraft with swept wings, flying impossibly low over the water, heading directly at the destroyer like a guided missile. Range 1 mile. Captain, we need to engage. Hold fire, Mitchell repeated. He'll break off. This is harassment, not an attack. Hold your fire. At 14:23 hours and 47 seconds, the Russian Tu-22M3 bomber passed directly over the USS Porter at an altitude of 50 feet. The entire flyover took 1.2 seconds. Then the bomber was passed, climbing rapidly and banking away to the northeast. Its mission accomplished. On the Porter's bridge, Captain Mitchell exhaled slowly. Her hands were shaking, but her decision had been correct. The bomber had carried no weapons. It had been a test, a dangerous, reckless test, but not an attack.
He carried no weapons.
Stand down from general quarters, Mitchell ordered. Secure from battle stations. Compile all video and radar data. I want a complete incident report transmitted to 6th Fleet within the hour. Within minutes, the Porter's communication systems transmitted encrypted video footage and radar data to U.S. Naval Forces Europe headquarters in Naples, Italy. The footage was stunning. A Russian strategic bomber flying at 50 feet altitude directly over an American warship in international waters. Admiral James Fago, commander of U.S. Naval Forces Europe, watched the video with a mixture of anger and relief. Anger at the reckless Russian provocation that could have triggered a shooting war, relief that Captain Mitchell had shown the restraint and judgment to hold fire. The incident was immediately classified and reported to the Pentagon, the White House, and NATO headquarters. Within 2 hours, President Trump was briefed on the Black Sea incident. They flew how close? Trump asked incredulously. 50 feet, Mr. President, reported Secretary of Defense. The bomber passed directly over the Porter's deck. If Captain Mitchell had given the order to fire, we'd be at war with Russia right now. Why didn't she fire? Sir, Captain Mitchell made a judgment call that the bomber was conducting harassment, not an actual attack. She assessed that shooting it down would trigger a larger conflict that wasn't justified by the threat level. Her restraint may have prevented World War III. Trump was silent for a moment. Get me Putin on the phone. This stops now. The hotline call between President Trump and President Putin lasted 37 minutes. The conversation was tense, with both leaders accusing the other of dangerous provocations. Your bomber flew 50 feet over my warship, Trump stated bluntly. That's an act of aggression that could have started a war. Your warship was operating in waters adjacent to Russian territory, Putin countered. We have every right to monitor threats to our security. The Black Sea is international waters. We have every right to be there under international law. What we don't have is Russian bombers conducting simulated attack runs on our vessels. The conversation ended with no resolution, but with both leaders understanding how close they had come to catastrophic escalation. Putin agreed to review Russian military procedures. Trump agreed to consider the proximity of U.S. naval operations to Russian territory. The real message had been sent and received. Both nations understood that incidents like the Porter flyover could spiral out of control. The next captain might not show the same restraint. The margin for error was razor thin. The USS Porter incident became a classified case study at the Naval War College, analyzed by strategists trying to understand decision-making under extreme pressure. Captain Mitchell's 3-second decision not to fire became the subject of intense debate. Some argued she had been correct, that shooting down the bomber would have triggered a conflict far more dangerous than the harassment itself. The bomber carried no weapons and broke off without attacking. Her restraint prevented escalation. Others argued she had been lucky, that the bomber could have been armed, could have launched weapons, could have actually attacked. By not firing, she had gambled with her ship and crew. The incident exposed the dangerous ambiguity of modern great power competition. The incident demonstrated that modern warfare isn't just about technology and firepower. It's about judgment, restraint, and understanding when not to pull the trigger. Captain Mitchell's decision not to fire may have been the most important military decision of 2025, precisely because it prevented a war that would have killed millions. That's the true story of the 3 seconds that prevented World War III. The incident remains classified, but its lessons echo through military command schools worldwide. In an era of great power competition, the next war may be prevented not by the weapons we fire, but by the ones we don't. If you found this analysis compelling, smash that subscribe button. Drop a comment on whether Captain Mitchell made the right call. Share this video so more people understand how close we came to war. This is Warfront Intel, where we deliver the unfiltered truth about modern warfare. Stay informed, stay tactical, and we'll see you in the next one.